Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis, and I'm here with Laura Massey. Nicole DeCroce couldn't be here today, so we are doing this recording. And today's topic is going to be a very interesting topic for those of you who are bent to the more natural way of accessing spirituality. So, Laura just did a trip to Scotland where there was a blend of the natural and also the technological. Okay, so I guess that begs the question. Laura, is shamanism still relevant in a modern society? Oh, we're going to start this discussion because I know I'm going to have problems, right? Stopping you from giving your opinion on this one. Go ahead, Laura. Introduce yourself first of all before you begin.
Hi, David. I'm part of the Andrew Bartz's New Teachings team, and I also have with Matty Waller and Del Tobin Two Feathers Medicine. So the three of us have been working very closely with Andrew recently, and we all trained with Andrew probably over about 10 years now. So Andrew teaches how to be a modern shaman in a modern world, David. So that is in potential for everybody, but not everybody is going to choose to do it, as we know. But why would you want to do it? It's like a calling. And those who recognize there is like a false matrix, a false light system on the planet, realize you can work with the natural energies of Earth. It's not wizardry. It's not really magic. You can make it magical and you can make it as mystical as you want to, and that's the beauty of it and the joy in it. But it's working with the natural energies of Earth. It's working with the unseen energies of Earth. And it's a beautiful way to live your life when you walk in balance with that. And most of us have forgotten how to work with the natural energies of Earth.
Interesting. First of all, I want to apologize to the audience. Laura's name tag on the screen is not Andrew. She's using Andrew Bartos's phone because we had technical difficulties. So Laura did not undergo any transition that we should know about. We are trying to do at this point in time is okay. So Laura, I'm going to be devil's advocate, right? I'm going to
Yeah.
be devil's advocate. I am going to say that there are a number of elements of shamanism which would not necessarily work in a modern world. Like, let's say I live in an apartment, as an example, and I just want to make my ceremonial fire, right, in the apartment. I just want to just build a little fire in my living room. So for those people who are living in big city areas where they may be in apartments, condominiums, and townhouses, as an example, would that
Okay.
be a deterrent to undergoing the training in shamanism?
No, but for those who argue for their limitations, it's a perfect reason not to. But if you want to be a true shaman in the modern world, you're not going to argue for your limitations. You're going to recognize where you make excuses not to do things. And they're all the blockages we have for whatever reason, which stops us doing these things. So you live in a modern apartment high up. So you've got access to a park or maybe some outdoor space, or maybe you haven't, or maybe it's winter and it's as cold as it could get, like what happens to David sometimes, and you don't want to go there. So do you have like a gas burner? Because I've done lots of ceremonies on my 5-ring gas burner, my where I cooked in my kitchen. If not, do you have a portable camping stove? Could you get a portable camping stove and put a pot of water on there to boil? It's all about the amount of heat you can get from it. And we have this discussion time and time again. It comes up on Andrew's shows. Can we use candles? No. There's not enough heat generated in candle power. Andrew's been teaching that for as long as I can remember. You need to do a fire. And I made plenty of excuses for myself. And I lived, when I started doing this, I lived in a house with a garden. And my excuse was the neighbours will see me. They'll wonder what I'm doing lighting a fire. So I used to hide myself, and I used to get a barbecue tray and hide myself at the bottom of the garden so the neighbours couldn't complain about the smoke. So we do make a lot of excuses not to do things, but you can do it in an apartment and ideally do an outdoor fire. But if you need to generate some heat for the clearing of negative energies or the other alchemy work that you use heat for, you can do it over your stove at home, but you need a flame. It's you want that flame that generates that heat.
Which brings us to the next issue. Let's say that we live in a modern society and we've discovered the uses of aspirin as an example. The origin of shamanism, well, a lot of shamans used to be called medicine women or medicine men. In today's world of medicine and traditional medicine, is shamanism still relevant? I only ask this question because a lot of people would be like, oh, I have a headache, call the shaman. Nope, I'm just going to get an aspirin. There's a convenience to modernization, which tends to cause a laziness among people who practice shamanism or people who want to practice, because shamanism is not something that is an overnight or weekend course. So have at it, Laura.
No, it's not an overnight thing. It's a learning and something it's in your DNA really that you want to do. But anyway, yes, modern medicine, so much of it comes from the natural world anyway. I actually believe in a combination of both. I'm not going to go that, no disrespect to light workers because I've been there myself, but I'm not going to go down the zealot light worker route of saying, don't take a paracetamol or aspirin when you've got a headache, because the most important thing really is to be pain free. But if you want to take maybe something you could do in shamanism, this isn't necessarily shamanism, but use some of the natural ways of relieving pain, like craniosacral therapy. If you're getting regular headaches, have some craniosacral therapy, or buy a still point inducer, which you can get on Amazon. Actually, don't pay Amazon prices because that's too expensive for still point. You should be able to find them from Upledger a bit cheaper. Or put 2 tennis balls in a sock and tie a knot and put those behind your occipital bone at the back to relieve some of the pressure. More often than not, you can really help headaches and migraines just by doing something really natural and simple, and you don't have to go to the doctor. But I'm not saying don't go to the doctor if you feel ill. That's the other thing that gets confusing in all this, David, is we get the zealots who won't ever go to the doctor and want to self-heal. You're talking about being a modern shaman in a modern world. That's what you do, folks. You use both. You use modern medicine. Modern medicine is keeping me alive. So you use modern medicine combined with your shamanic techniques. You don't lose sight of either. That's the balance you have to walk in the modern world.
Good, not a problem. The next question, because you know I got lots of questions, right? You hitched upon a point there a little earlier on. You were afraid that the neighbors will see you. There are practices that are in shamanism which are, how does one put this? A bit more public than people would like. We have a bunch of people who are spiritually in the closet, okay? I just did a show last week with a lady who worked in corporate, and she was in the closet for quite a while. And shamanism is one of the more, well, outdoorsy kind of spiritual practices. So if you wanted to practice outside, what is your advice for people who want to connect with nature? Like, I know that where I lived, when I lived in a big city, going outside with your shoes off and standing in the grass was something that will lose you some friends real quick. So, advice, Laura.
Well, let's try again dispel that barefoot hippie image that I went through as well. Okay, you can ground in other ways. You don't have to walk through, like I did, a lot of sheep shit through fields when you're walking. You can ground in other ways. So how about, first of all, getting out in nature? That's the first one. Getting out in nature and having a walk and just listening to the trees talk to you, listen to the wind talk to you. You know, air, spirit. That's your first of the elements, maybe to connect to when you go to out for a walk. So you're connecting to the earth. You're connecting to the 4 elements here. You're connecting to the fire of the sun. That's the fire element. You're connecting to earth. You're connecting to the wind. And you're connecting to water, because water is in everything, even if you're not by a stream. So don't think that you lose connection either when you go indoors, but it's enhanced when you go outdoors. Now, what I found over the years is I had to work on losing those projections, which gave somebody else's view of what I was doing greater input into me than my own view of what I was doing. And I've lost that. So now I can carry my drum, my flute. Many of you would have seen the videos I do with a friend. We'll go into a public park or somewhere and play the flute and beat the drums. And, you know, most times people love it. They're really interested in what you're doing. They like that. So I go out and talk to the wind. I mean, it's considered, of course, you know, you're crazy if you talk to yourself, which of course it isn't at all, because you can have some very good conversations with spirit and with your inner self too. I mean, that's, you know, but just go out there and do something that connects you with nature. That's the first step. And so many of the people out there who've started off on the shamanism route do just what I used to do. They collect a feather, they collect a stone, they collect something from somewhere they've been, like a sacred site, that connects them to that space. Now, that's not difficult to do. Nobody's going to comment on you picking up something from a sacred site, be it a feather or a stone or something like that, that's connecting you to that special place. But the important thing is don't let other projections run your life.
Agreed. And I just want to say something here on that point. Listen, you guys are going to be weird to somebody. Everybody is weird to somebody, okay? That's the motto that you should live by. So no matter how weird you are, you should just be yourself, because there's one thing that I've learned in life. If they can't accept you as you, then they can't accept you, period.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
Which brings us to the next construct, shamanic psychology. I wanted to do an entire show on this. Okay? I wanted to do an entire show on this question, but I'm going to just squeeze the question down. When one decides to walk the path of shamanism, obviously the psychology will have to change. And I say this because shamanism is about connectedness with self, connectedness with spirit, connectedness with the nature and the elements around you. Many people walk out of connection, and this is largely due to the fact that, well, they're on screens like the one I'm looking at right now a lot of the time, right? And they're in their phones and stuff like that, and all that pulls you away from who you are. There are a lot of people that are walking around trying to be social media influencers, trying to be this and trying to be that, all hooked up into the approval system of the matrix, so to speak. How does one go easily into shamanism? Is it a natural process where after like 10 years, you just wake up one day and you realize, I don't give a shit what anybody says? Or how does that work?
For me, it's a gradual process, and it was finding the joy and the mysticism in the unseen world. We haven't actually mentioned those 2 words yet, the unseen world.
Because I'm getting there, though. I am so getting there slowly.
So for me, that's what it's about. You're working with the unseen world as well as the seen world, aren't you? And you are aware that the unseen world has effect on everything you do. Everything in the seen world has an unseen aspect, and vice versa. So first of all, in shamanism, when you start to recognize that you can also have an effect in the unseen world by doing your ceremonies and rituals and doing the daily discipline that Andrew's always talking about, getting your connection, your daily prayers. And you can see how it can work for you, not in a selfish way, but and there's nothing wrong with that actually, in a self-developmental way, working with the unseen world. It's about you growing your soul and taking on the responsibility to grow your soul this lifetime. I've drifted somewhat from the question, was David, sorry.
No, you haven't drifted from the question. You're actually on point with the question. My next question is a question of culture. So that word shamanism has been, for want of a better word, prostituted quite a bit all over the world. Okay. So, first of all, I want to clear up a few things. If you were in Africa and you were practicing shamanism, you were called a dibia. If you were in, I suppose, Wales or England, and you were practicing shamanism, you might have been called a druid. Okay? Right? If you were in the North American continent, you would be called a shaman. And if you were in the Caribbean, you would be called an obia man. Because that's basically what they all do. They all work with the same principles. My question is, and this is a very cogent question, why have some of these titles not been thrown around, right? I mean, people understand what shamanism is, but I do realize that it's just a set of practices that is practiced all over the world. Funny enough, people from different continents all came to the same conclusions as to what the natural world and the unseen world has to offer. They came to the same conclusions, and if you study the Orisha or whatever else, they're saying the same thing. The American Indians are saying the same thing. The people in England and Britain, and the same thing the Norsemen were saying. If this is actually what we all came to as a collective, if this is what we all came to as a collective, that alone should be validity for the practice. Yeah. Why is it that people would have arguments against shamanism, such as it belongs to hippie culture, when it is older than, well, modern technology? It is older than anything else. Why do you think people would like to remove people from their connectedness with the land and with the seasons, the elements, even themselves?
It's got to be feared, really, isn't it, at the end of the day? And for some people, it's fear of their own power. And maybe a better word would be potency. It's fear of change, fear of, and I've been there too. Fear of knowing that really you are complete in yourself. You don't need anything else or anyone to complete you if you just go and do this self-mastery or self-empowerment working with the earth. You even don't use the word shamanism. You can use other words because it has been abused, as you've said. It has been made into a bit of a zealot or a bit of a woo-woo word. I think it's people don't want to get out their comfort zone as well, some of it. And it presents for them, just looking back on my journey and how I've been treated, it presents for them something they don't understand. And if they don't understand it, they then fear it. And some people, let's face it, some people just aren't ready for it this lifetime either. But, there's those of us who are and have sort of come to sort of say to people, look, there's nothing really weird about this. It might appear weird at times, but there isn't. It's the most natural thing to work with the earth's natural energies. It's the most natural thing to have an unseen world. Okay. There's nothing odd about that. So I think fair.
So the emphasis on the natural world, that started back in Neanderthal times. Cro-Magnon man practiced a version of shamanism. He absolutely did, right? That's why they painted on caves and stuff like that. In today's world, religion has been a very poor substitute for connecting with the natural world. But what I found when I did study religion and I did study theology is that what it tends to do is make people outsource their salvation
Totally. Yeah.
to some um, nondescript, vague being in the unseen world, which is where we're going with that. Some
Yes.
nondescript, so they do believe in an unseen world. They just took out the part where they have any power, right? So,
Yes.
as an example,
Yes.
if you are Christian, you're not even going to the unseen world directly. You're paying some guy to go to the unseen world on your behalf, right? If you're Catholic, sorry, you're paying some guy to go to the unseen world on your behalf. So your pastor or your church leader will pray for you, okay? So he will connect to the unseen world because he has the keys that you don't, right? All you got to do is just read the Bible. And what does the Bible tell you to do? Apparently, pray to God, right? But the pastor somehow has convinced you to, yeah, if you put some money in that thing and, yeah, I'll pray for you. And it's extortion at the highest level. What does Laura say to that?
Well, religion has set itself up as the middleman for something that doesn't need to be a middleman. You don't need that there. You can connect with yourself and the unseen world because it is you. You are your ancestors. You don't need anybody to do that for you. It's all inside of you. And religion has come in and sort of said, no, we can do that for you. It's all outsourced. It's not within you. And the other thing with religion, there's certain sets of rules and so on, which has to agree with the way they do things. Whereas shamanism, you flow like the tides, the ebb and flow of the tides, everything. You're just working with the natural energies. You don't need a middleman to tell you how to work with the natural energies of life.
It's actually kind of funny because everybody, if you talk to somebody who's into religion, and I do talk to these people quite often for amusement value a lot of the times. All right, right. I do talk to them. I ask them the same. Do you believe you have a soul? And they say, yes, I absolutely believe it. You see, that's the problem with the word believe. It leaves room for doubt. Doubt that could be erased if you undertake certain practices. Then you know, and then you don't believe. So I ask, if you believe you have a soul, what steps have you taken to prove that thing to yourself? Because it's always very telling at the point of death how people react because they're not sure. They may have been wrong and they didn't take the time during their life to do that. What do you suppose is the underlying fear that people have of actually encountering the unseen world? I understand that the priests have told you that if you go try to find the unseen world, it's haram or it's or whatever the case is. That's witchcraft, ironically speaking, because right, that's witchcraft. That's like voodoo, obi, or whatever else, and there's a stigma attached to it. What do you suppose is the underlying fear of people encountering the unseen world? And that's why they stay away from practices like shamanism and everything else in the metaphysical spectrum.
Well, religion set up a lot of very, very extremes, hasn't it, in the good and evil and so on. And we know we work with dark and light, or we work with negative energies, but we've always, religion will teach that they can overpower you, that you have to be totally in the light, whereas you can, and I know practitioners who do, work with both and maintain a middle balance. But this is a very, very difficult view for people to sort of comprehend, that the way life is set up is there is dark and light. And I know we work in the light, and this has been something I've had real difficulty understanding and always been fearful of, let's say, the dark side of magic and stuff like that. I don't dabble in it. But having said that, I know I'm self-empowered enough to stand in my own light. And I do the practices to do that.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. I think the majority of the world's population lives in daily fear of their own mortality, that they're
Mm,
going to die soon.
yeah.
I think that that's the case. I think the majority of the world lives in absolute fear that there is some evil forces outside that they cannot actually see that's after them, whether you call it the devil or whatever the case may be. And I wonder why there is a choice to live in fear. Is that part of the design of the universe? That people choose to live in fear when there is a simple solution right in front of your face, right? If you fear something, go towards it as opposed to running away from it for decades. So, this part of human nature absolutely fascinates me. Okay,
Well,
the
that's what,
go ahead, go ahead,
David,
Laura.
that's what shamanism, the beliefs of shamanism and how beautiful death can be as a transition and stuff like that. So much of that has been wiped out, like you say. People fear death rather than understanding it as a natural transition into another dimension. And religion has done a lot towards that too. So it's yeah, it's also there's so much conditioning, isn't there, for over years and years on the television, what's handed down to us from our parents and so on, or all the natural storytelling, that comes from the ancient beings, that comes from the ancient shaman, talking about death in a very natural, non-fearful way. So much of that has been lost.
I think a lot of people, when they think about shamanism or they think about the unseen world or anything to do with that, it's kind of like going to a foreign country where you don't speak the language. I mean, it sounds like a good idea, but I don't speak the language, so I'm not getting on the plane. So I don't get to experience other cultures and I don't get to experience other things. So the unseen world for them is like this kind of place where I'll get there one day, but I'm just going to stay within a. Is it? I think it's a comfort curve thing for a lot of people. And the
Yeah,
problem.
and
The, go ahead.
sorry, David, and there is there's sort of like there's the semi-glamour side of it as well, like um, with the psychics who talk to your dead auntie and or your grandmother and stuff like that. There's not a ghoulishness, but they're sort of interested. They want to know. There's a level at which they will go to, but they won't take it any further.
Mm, yes, because they'll just pay somebody like the priest and outsource what they have on board to somebody else to get done. And I suppose there is good and bad parts to that. The good and bad parts to it are, um, well, it dumbs you down quite a bit. It stops you from actually pursuing your own development. The good parts of that is it dumbs you down quite a bit and it stops you from pursuing your own development. Because if you are a naturally cruel and evil person, pursuing that development might not end well for the rest of society. Which brings me to my next question. which brings me to my next question. There are dark shaman people out there. Yay or
Yes,
nay?
yes, there are those practicing dark magic. It's not something I look at because Andrew's always saying what you look at looks back at you.
Mhm.
But yes, I'm sure I know there are and have been.
Okay, I fail to see. Okay, so I read this book some years ago called Liber Chaos, right? It said that it doesn't matter what you're doing at any point in time, we're all going to reunite in the same place, right? That's what it said. So any machinations or any kind of like plans that you have are pointless, right? Because any plans that you have of world domination, right? I'm
Yeah,
going to conquer the world are pointless because you're going to die. We're all going to end up in the same place. You're going to be recycled like hell. We're going to experience the janitor life. We're going to experience the king life. Each one of us is going to go through those cycles of birth and rebirth, and then eventually, I suppose at some point in time, or probably it may not stop, depending on your belief system, we're going back to the same place. So why are you doing all of this stuff? Okay. I remember reading that book and getting and falling into a slight depression due to this fact. And I say, because like, but I have plans. Oh, they're pointless. Right. So like I was going to go to the cinema this evening. Oh, that's pointless as well. Why? What are you doing all this for? Which is why there are some extreme forms of spirituality, which came from shamanism, right, where people literally don't do anything. Okay, it's like we're just waiting for this shit to end. What is your what is your opinion on that?
It's a free world universe. It's a free world planet in
You
a
know
free
what?
world galaxy. So you use no good battling against that. It doesn't mean you don't have boundaries. It doesn't mean to say you don't practice all the lovely good shamanism, if you like, with your good ancestors in this lifetime, because you're all going into the big melting pot at the end. No, it doesn't mean that, because it's so much of it is about building on other lifetimes to free yourself from the karma as well, and the understanding of that, the understanding of releasing of trauma for yourself and your previous and future generations and so on. And when you get into shamanism, you start to get a grasp of all that and realize that the work is not just for yourself, but other people doing the dark stuff and so on. It is a free world planet. So am I going to engage them? No, not unless they try and put a foot in my reality. And then I will engage it, because I like my reality to be full of unicorns and butterflies, and I don't. I love
You just did a plug for all the hippie type people out there, you know, right?
I know, a fluffy kitten. No,
You just did a
I
plug for
like my I like my reality to be something I am co-creating with the universe, or co-creating with great mystery and great spirit is how I work, because that's what works best for my self-development, my self-empowerment, and my soul's development. Because I've always said to you in private conversations, it's not just this lifetime, it's all the other lifetimes we're responsible for healing, so that we can all move forward to that fifth world of peace, which is one of the things that, you know, you're gonna, it's not, I don't want this to sound threatening, you don't have to do that to get there. You do have to hold a frequency of love to do that in part.
So I have a comment to the question. For the people who are practicing the nothingness approach,
Yeah.
I just want to let them know that you planning to do nothing is a pointless plan on top of it, right? But you mentioned something there that is very interesting to a lot of people. The fifth world of peace. Describe,
Yeah.
what does that mean? It sounds so hippie. I feel like rolling a joint right now. Tell me.
So let's see how Andrew describes it. When all the timelines that contain our best potentials merge
Ah,
for
understood.
humanity. Okay.
What happens
So
then?
on the merging is then we're operating in the frequency of the fifth world of peace. But
Yeah.
I'm a great believer that you can feel, well, this is very personal. I can feel some of that when I do my work now, because we're not static beings, are we? We're multidimensional. So we're moving between timelines. We're mixing with different people on different timelines. And I choose, I hope, in the unseen, that's my aim, and in the dream world and whatever, to find my soul family to co-create the energies of the fifth world of peace.
Understood. Give me paint me a picture of what the fifth world of peace looks like, because I've read the Awake magazines and the Watchtower magazines. I see the covers. Paint me a picture of what that would actually look like.
Okay, because you're expecting me to say children running hand in hand through long
Lions,
grasses in the sunset.
a lions cuddling with their. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry.
Yes,
The reason why, the reason why I'm making this distinction is because there's a lot of people out there who
yeah.
who say these things, and they have no understanding of what that would actually practically mean. And so let's say they come from Christian backgrounds, and they've watched the Watchtower magazines and the Awake magazines, and they're picturing like lions running around with their right best buddies and stuff like that. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to give your side of that story.
What's my fifth world of peace is what you're asking me.
Are there unicorns in there?
Well, not really.
Okay.
I
No
mean,
unicorns.
there are some good things. Of course, there's got to be everything that you want to co-create with the universal, with great mystery, great spirit, which is of benefit to humanity. Of course, that's got to be in there and elevates your soul or lifts your soul on this never-ending voyage, this never-ending self-mastery journey. How else would I describe the fifth world of peace? You see, it's so difficult because to me it's a frequency of peace, it's a frequency of joy, and it's a frequency of love. But you know that even in that, things come up at your boundaries, which aren't that. And it's being able to handle those in a sacred, neutral way.
Okay. My next question, I suppose my next question is a practicality question. We've discussed disconnecting yourself from the approval system of the matrix, whether people want to approve you or not, whether people want to validate you or not. You will admit, however, that there are people who are on certain paths that take things over the top. So, as an example, if I wanted to practice shamanism and I wanted to get back to my real roots, and I go putting on a loincloth.
Yes, I know. Do you remember Matty saying on one of the shows that just because you wear a poncho doesn't make you spiritual? Which we thought was hilarious.
Let's say I put on my loincloth. Let's just say I put on my loincloth.
Yes.
All right. This clothes thing is no. I'm just going to take that off. All right. I have my loincloth. I have my little my stick, my loincloth, and a couple of feathers, and I go to Walmart. You do realize that there are some people that do take that over the top. They do. What do you have to say to these people? Or let's say that I want to talk about the fifth world of peace, so I'm going to put on a tiara with a unicorn horn on. Like, I'm just saying, right? What would be your message to people like this?
Well, first of all, yeah, it's a free world universe, so you can do that. And quite honestly, though, it doesn't matter whether you do that or don't do that. But what matters is the substance of your actions and what you're doing and what your intentions are. And are you living by are you finding the courage and commitment and discipline, as Andrew's always saying, to do the daily practices, to maintain your spiritual hygiene, to keep up a good rapport with the unseen world that is, again, about the self, finding your own self potential to clear yourself of trauma and stuff like that. Are you doing the work, or are you just putting this stuff on, going out there and thinking because you're wearing this, you're doing something that's good? How have you worked on yourself? Do you journal? Do you call out your parasympathetic when it's trying to run programs that aren't for your greatest good or could be harming other people or yourselves? Yeah, so wearing stuff is fine if you want to do it, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing any of the practices at all. And this, does seem to happen quite a bit.
Yeah, the reason why I brought all this up is because, honestly speaking, I think there's been a disconnect between the substance of practice and the appearance of practice. Okay? And it works in both the good and the bad way. And I say the good and the bad way by saying You have people that look the part, that aren't the part, and then you have people that do not make a lot of noise, that are completely the part. Okay,
Yeah.
and they've never heard the word shamanism or any of those labels. So
Hmm.
there is that aspect. The other aspect that I wanted to take into consideration is that when you're dealing with labels, because in today's world, you don't have a label, you apparently are no one. Okay? There are a group of, well, shamans, where they call themselves shamans in India, called Agori. And you've never heard of them. It's a sect of Hinduism of extreme asceticism. And when I say that, I mean they eat dead bodies. I kid you not, that's a real thing. They eat dead bodies. They attend funeral pyres and so on, and they take the ashes of the dead and they smear it all over themselves. BBC actually did a documentary on them some time ago, and the reporter had to run away because he was so horrified by their practices. Right, and so that's extreme asceticism, but they are classed in the category of people that interact with the real world, and their powers, so to speak. I say powers, that's what they call them, but the skills that they develop are very, very, very real.
Hmm.
Right? So, and they wear loincloths. That's where the loincloth command came from. So
Oh, okay.
I'm just wondering, by proxy, if I put on my loincloth, will I develop the powers of an Agori if I like stay in the loincloth long enough, man?
Yeah, I get your point, and that's what we've just been saying, isn't it? You know, it's not about what you're wearing. It
Yeah,
really is. It's not about that. You've got to understand the depth of what you're doing. But it doesn't mean to say if you're wearing that that you're not like that, that you don't do the practices. So you can do both. But I think sometimes they miss the point. Let's say that.
yes. I would think that they missed the point if you're eating dead bodies. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't care what spiritual gifts that gives me. I'm definitely not eating any dead bodies. What the hell? Okay, so there is that aspect. The other aspect that I wanted to, well, I suppose let's wrap this up because Andrew needs his phone back. So the next aspect I would like to take into consideration is if you are an aspiring shaman, you want to start that path and so on. Where do you start? What does that look like?
Well, just based on mine, go out in nature, connect yourself. You don't need that middleman. Just connect yourself to the elements. It always starts with the elements. Go and talk to the wind. Listen to the voice of the wind in the trees. Go and watch how water is. Go and look at those places where the veil is thinner between the land and the sea, or go out in mist and get the enjoyment from nature. Clear your mind and just try and work with all the natural elements. And then that's just a start. And then to carry on, then you have to do a lot of the self work, and that's releasing yourself of the trauma and the programs, and that's further down the line. But start off with finding that deep joy in that connection to all the wonderful, beautiful things around you. That is a really good way to start. And it gives you that mysticism as well. When you start, you know, your daily practice as well, your daily prayer practice, and then you start to co-create and you call in the winds and you work with the winds and you talk to the merfolk, you know, and you start to, maybe you hear something back or something comes to you in dream time, and that really inspires you on your journey. Find the inspiration, find that initial magic and find that joy. And if you've lost that on the path, go back and do that again and do
Yeah.
your daily prayer practice.
And please practice shamanism responsibly. If you live in the North Pole, don't go out into a loincloth in December. When you're walking in the mist, please make sure you can see where you're walking. Don't walk next to cliffs. Right? These are the things that one must actually utilize. Common sense is always good with for everything else. I'm going to do the daily giveaway, and then we're going to come back to you to give um way of contacting you. So let me just switch to the next screen. Guys,
Sure.
today's giveaway is, well, a stay at home and make money course for people who are having difficult times, because I know that some of y'all are having difficult times. It is the state of the economy. So I'm giving y'all the way y'all make money at home in a course. So you all have 10 seconds to scan the code. Scanning in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm taking it down, guys. And back to Laura. Laura, I am going to give you the opportunity to give your contact. I'm going to also put it on screen. So go ahead, Laura.
Thank you. You can find me at Laura Two Feathers with the number 2, Laura2feathers@gmail.com. If you want a private session, I'm an ancestral medium, so can connect you to your ancestors. Even though you can do that yourself, I can maybe inspire you to do that and take you to your ancestral fire, or anything else you'd like to touch base on as well. And also, if you're interested in our combined therapies UK tour that we're doing at the moment with Andrew, where we're doing a number of different healings with the Lucia light, with the PMMF mat, with craniosacral therapy. We've had some wonderful successes with these combined healings. So if you'd like to be involved in that, please just email me. Thank you, David. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. And guys, I would highly suggest y'all contact Laura in any case, because she practices responsible shamanism.
And I wear a poncho. David, I do wear a poncho. I'm sorry, I do.
You wear a poncho? Really? Okay, all right. So she practices responsible shamanism. I love the earrings. Guys, I will see you guys next week. Take care, guys.
Thanks, David.
And let's take a few moments to settle in, drawing our attention to the breath and simply observe any sensations associated with each inward and each outward movement. Feel yourself. Breathe into this space and let it gently soften and expand on your breath. Take in the life force energy that it emanates.
Ten-minute chakra balance guided meditation for positive energy. This is your time.
If thoughts intrude, imagine they are colored balloons separate from you. Let them go. Let them float away. You are present now.